In the words of the legendary chef and my personal hero, Anthony Bourdain, food is everything we are. It's an extension of a nationalist feeling, ethnic feeling, your personal history, your province, your region, your tribe, your grandma. It's inseparable from those from the get-go. Welcome to Every Dish a Story, a podcast about a place of food in our lives and what it meant to our ancestors. I'm your host, Kat, and I'm going to take you to a new location every 2 weeks to connect to who we are. Barbecue is not a necessity of life. Barbecue is life itself. Welcome to Every Dish a Story, episode 16. I'm your host, Kat, and today we return to Memphis, Tennessee to find out about the history of its glorious barbecue. Adrian Miller's research for a book on the history of African American barbecue led him to a significant conclusion about Memphis. I'm beginning to believe that Memphis is the most important barbecue city in the world, said the author, who won a James Beard Award for his book about soul food in 2013. And looking back at the history of barbecue in the Bluff City, it's easy to see how he have reached that conclusion. Memphis, as we know it today, was founded in 1819. Memphis, Tennessee, like its biblical namesake on the Nile, is situated on a bluff just above the banks of the Mississippi. Being a port city, the two goods moving through Memphis, in addition to cotton of course, were hardwood and molasses. And that is a great place to start when it comes to barbecue. During the beginning of the Civil War, the Union took control of the city, and it held it throughout the conflict. As a result, it became a haven for escaped slaves and a thriving population. The black community's influence and their music also brought another Memphis export, the King, Elvis Presley, as well as B.B. King, Muddy Waters, and a number of musicians who came to Memphis to record. And while we're on the subject of history, when Columbus arrived in the islands, the natives were cooking meat, primarily manatee, on wooden racks that the Haitians called barbacoa. So the term barbecue was derived from this. Then, of course, the French heard the term from a different indigenous group, and the word was boucan, and boucanier was a pirate and a meat curer using a boucan. Cooking meats over open fires was very common in colonial America, and it is credited with starting food known as barbecue. To keep the meat moist during the cooking process, the settlers used oil or vinegar to baste it. As slaves were brought into kitchens from the Caribbean islands, they brought exotic spices with them, paving the way for modern barbecue flavors, recipes, and techniques. In the world of barbecue, there are 4 dominant regions according to the general consensus. In no particular order, these are Texas, Kansas City, the Carolinas, and Memphis. As Kansas City is situated on a geographical crossroads, they use a variety of meat. The state of Texas is well known for its beef. The Carolinas are known for their whole hogs and delicious ribs. And Memphis's meat of choice is ribs, with pulled pork coming in a close second. These are very broad classifications, and there's a lot of overlap, not to mention the plethora of sub-regional variations. After bringing us Jack Daniel's, the first licensed distillery in the United States, you'd think Tennessee would take a well-deserved break. But they still had pigs as cheap meat source, and the region's hardwood and molasses flowed through the region on the mighty Mississippi, creating a perfect storm to evolve the distinctive flavors of Memphis barbecue. By the turn of the century, barbecue as we know it today existed in Memphis. In the early 1900s, a man named Henry Perry left Memphis for Kansas City, where he opened a barbecue restaurant using everything he learned in Memphis. With access to a variety of ingredients, he developed some of the signature characteristics associated with the Kansas City barbecue. It wasn't until after World War II that barbecue's commercial viability skyrocketed, with small joints springing up all over the place. Because the ingredients were on the lower end of the price spectrum, a large portion of this growth occurred in the lower income areas. This, like any other great movement, resulted in improved techniques and some codification of the style. The World War II influence brought home local sailors who insisted on trying the newfangled pizza that was exploding in other markets. The owner of Coletta's Italian restaurant, which had been in operation since 1923, sent his son to Chicago to learn about this new cuisine. But, being from Memphis, it had to be done their way. Back in the day, these cool cats brought us the barbecue pizza. This has been a source of pain in the ass for pizza purists for decades, with its decidedly southern flavor reappearing on menus in pizzerias across the country ever since, and was even said to be a favorite of Elvis the King himself. Memphis had a lot going on by the late 1950s. Sun Records has been in business for a while, recording more than just Elvis Presley, with Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Roy Orbison crooning in their studios. Elvis also purchased the Graceland estate in 1957. Just imagine cruising down the streets in an iconic candy red 57 Corvette with the top down, listening to Elvis on the radio singing All Shook Up and smelling the visceral aromas of smoking meat all around you. The marriage of music and barbecue began in 1977 with the Memphis in May Festival. Throughout the month-long event, activities such as Beale Street Music Festival take place all over town to this day. With an incredible line of performers ranging from locally born Aretha Franklin to stars such as Willie Nelson and Weezer, this is the festival to be reckoned with, and it was about to get even better. The World Championship Barbecue Cooking Contest began in 1978 with 26 teams and a $500 grand prize. And this is when you would be cruising in your Rockford Files Gold 78 Camaro with the tops down, listening to your favorite Elvis live from the Hawaii cassette as you get parked and get ready to enjoy some championship barbecue. Now the prices exceed $15,000 and nearly 20 tons of meat are prepared over the course of 4 days. So it's no surprise that they set a Guinness Book of Records record for the largest barbecue. In order to compete in the championship, you must use actual wood or charcoal in the preparation process. Hickory was the most common wood moving on the Mississippi back then, and as a result, it became the basis for barbecuing. Because it imparts a distinctively strong and sweet flavor, hickory is a natural for cooking pork. It is still the preferred wood for smoking bacon and ham, and it also works well for ribs and shoulder cuts. Most commercial pits are more akin to a locker than a pit in the ground, which is where the term originated. Literally everything from a filing cabinet to a garbage can to the ubiquitous 55-gallon drum can be used to make a home version. The goal is to have a controlled heat source as well as racks or hooks to keep the meat in the smoke-filled chamber. This is what distinguishes barbecue from open flame grilling. While we may casually refer to throwing a steak on the grill, true aficionados define barbecuing as slow cooking with smoke and heat. The rub is unquestionably the star of Memphis-style barbecue. And what is surprising, Columbus actually was involved in this. We know he mistook himself for being on the subcontinent half a world away because he referred to the locals as Indians. He didn't do any better with the food he observed the locals eating and preparing. He labeled them with the word peppers. Blame him for the confusion between the pepper, the seed that we grind as a spice, and the entire family of fruits, also known as peppers. Having said that, Columbus returned them to Europe, and within 15 years, peppers has circumnavigated the globe more successfully than he ever did. To this day, 1/4 of the world's population consumes some form of pepper every day. In most rub recipes, paprika, which is a ground dried mild pepper, competes for the first place. The sugar is its competitor. Since it is difficult to argue that any meat is more receptive to being sweetened than pork, it stands to reason that sugar vies for the first place. Even still, there will be more pepper components on your ingredient list. Mild chili powder and cayenne pepper, as well as ground black pepper and even ground white pepper, make an appearance. Garlic and onion powders are 2 other ingredients found in almost every rub. The floodgates then open on herbs and spices used in rubbing pork for the grill. The exotic spiciness is enhanced by the use of dry mustard and powdered ginger. Cumin, thyme, and ground celery seeds contribute mellower distinct flavor components to round out the flavor of the rub. Aromatic notes can be added to your rub with dry oregano, ground rosemary, and ground juniper. With so many flavors in the rubs, it is very common to have Memphis-style ribs served dry with sauce on the side, so you can choose how to combine the flavors. When serving pulled pork, the slightly thick, sweet, and tangy Memphis-style sauce is often mixed in with the meat and napped on top. There's also a type of sauce known as a mop that is used in the cooking process known as swabbing. Typically, these sauces are thinner and vinegar-based. In conjunction with the slow cooking, the acids in the vinegar will help tenderize the meat. This is a full circle from the early settlers mopping their meats with vinegar and oil, reminding us that while it can be difficult to come up with the new ideas, the old ones can be quite effective. Central Barbecue opened in 2002, and they are firmly on the no sauce in the pit side of things. You'll get the flavor you need from the rub in the smoke. These astute individuals are also credited with perfecting another hybrid meal, barbecue nachos, using fresh cooked chips, meat, cheese sauce, jalapenos, and then sprinkling their own rub blend over the top for the flavor experience that is out of this world. So it's time to plate the meal, as the professionals say. That means that you'll need a sauce. especially if you're serving it on a roll or between two slices of white bread with sweet relish and onions. You must have your barbecue sauce. Creating your own sauce from ketchup base is very common. Some good recipes don't even require cooking again. The usual suspects known from the rubs will appear. Brown sugar, mustard, some type of pepper, onion and garlic powders are all used. When you play with liquid, you can add molasses, Worcestershire sauce, prepared mustard, and of course vinegar. The most popular vinegar is apple cider vinegar, which has a natural flavor that goes well with pork. The goal for your sauce is to strike a balance between sweetness and vinegary tang. Signature flavors permeate the cooking process, resulting in a perfect complement to the barbecue. And while enjoying the meaty flavors of pork and ribs, mac and cheese provides a contrasting richness to visit back and forth. It works so well that it can be served as an entree with the pulled or diced pork mixed right in. Traditional side dishes will never go out of style, however. Coleslaw is still a strong contender, with its cool flavors and crisp texture. Slaw is so popular that it's often served on top of the pulled pork sandwich, much like lettuce on a burger. Also, cornbread. And the list goes on and on with collard greens, potato salad, corn, french fries, onion rings, and so on. Anyone's appetite should be satisfied if it's followed by a banana pudding or a sweet potato pie especially. So, here we are now in the roaring 2020s. To be honest, the decade has had a rocky start. But how wonderful that we can still savor a strand of smoky food that has been in the making for 500 years. Cargo continues to roll up the river, and the same barbecue joints continue to serve feast-worthy fare. Their cooks forgo the fine linen in favor of sloppy dishes that are worth every smear of food and a stack of used paper napkins to show for your efforts. You can now be cruising the Memphis waterfront in the latest models of the Corvette, Camaro, or Mustang with Elvis streaming through your iPhone singing Memphis, Tennessee, a song about trying to reach his girl over the phone. The Beale Street Music Festival continues to provide the soundtrack for the World Championship Barbecue Cooking Contest year after year. The Mississippi Tapestry continues to bring the confluence of cultures and history that both define and enhance our experience. Our hunger is constant, and Memphis style caters to all of our senses. Thank you so much for listening. On this note, I'd like to wrap up our little trip to Memphis, Tennessee. As always, I remind you that I have a YouTube channel with all the dishes that I talk about, and you can cook them yourselves. And also I have a website, and you can find the recipes there as well. All the links are in the description of this episode. Continue to eat well, train hard, and love cats. And also please recycle your garbage when you can. And wherever you are in the world, I hope that you are safe and that you are healthy. Bye-bye for now, and I'll be back on May 5th with a new journey.